What is up, guys, and welcome to the Meeple Minded podcast, the podcast where we talk all things tabletop gaming. My name is Jason.
And I'm James.
How are you doing this week, James?
Not too bad, mate.
Good. It's been ages since I've seen you.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's got to have been at least 20 hours.
Yeah, I know.
It's been way too long.
Did you miss me?
I did, James. I did. The house has been empty without you. Doesn't matter that I obviously haven't been here because I've been at work.
Yes.
As have you. Been a work kind of day.
It has been a work-like day.
Yeah, I thought I'd have an easy day today, but it wasn't as
the
easy.
worst kind of day, a work day.
Yes, and we had good weather today as well, which made it even worse.
Yes.
Yes, for van drivers, James, it's a horrible day.
It is.
Is when it's warm.
There isn't really no good day when you work outside, is it? It's either too hot or too cold or too wet.
Oh yeah, in the UK, 100%. There is no happy medium.
No.
I think there's probably somewhere in the world, like one tiny little square foot of the world, where it's working in this temperature, in this humidity, and this whatever external factors there are, be it rain or whatever, will be absolutely spot on.
Mm.
We need to find this point.
Doesn't exist in this country.
It definitely doesn't exist in the UK. But anyway, James, how has the rest of your week been, bar last night? Because we will obviously be talking about that in just a few minutes.
Yeah, it's been all right.
Yeah, been up to much?
No.
Bit of PC gaming at all?
Yeah, the odd bit when in between working.
Yeah, what's the game of choice at the moment?
The game of choice at the moment is Factorio.
Okay, you're back on a Factorio thing.
Yes.
Okay. But you'll have to remind me which one Factorio is, because I always get it confused with that and Satisfactory.
They're basically the same game,
okay.
Except one is 2D and one is 3D.
Oh, which one came first?
Factorio. Factorio is the...
okay.
It's the one that spawned pretty much that sort of genre of factory building games.
Yeah.
I mean, I do... You've never played them, have you?
Not really, no. They're not really my type of game.
So think of it as this, whereas Satisfactory is a full, what I would call a modern 3D game engine, whereas Factorio, it's graphically is very much, I call it Command and Conquer graphics.
Oh, okay.
But in high def.
Yeah. Is it quite an old game then, in fact?
It's not, but it's because of the sheer amount of Satisfactory was brave going for the 3D graphics on top of it because they're quite intensive games because of the amount of calculations and stuff that they have to do.
Yeah.
Sticking top-tier graphics on top of it, it makes most PCs cry.
Yeah. I mean, the experience I've got really with those games is I watch the various YouTubers that go out of their way to break these games. Like, yeah, the one that my son absolutely loves is Let's Game It Out. Yeah. And, he just completely trashes these games.
Well,
it's hilarious.
It's hilarious, but it's funny that you bring that up because developers of Satisfactory actually use Let's Game It Out's footage and data basically to optimize the game. It's like, he is basically an unpaid beta tester because of where he goes, I am going to break this game. Yeah. They then look at it and go, we need to fix that. Yeah, exactly. And I always find it funny as well because you get like the people that play like Raft and stuff, like religiously, and you get them watching some of his videos and going, the silly thing is like, yes, all right, what you're seeing on the screen is hilarious, but what you don't know is he's actually put in like 50 hours of gameplay in order to do this one little joke. Yep. The Satisfactory ones are exactly the same. Just how... And more importantly, how much time did that take and how is it actually working? Yep, exactly. It's one of those things that if you've got the time to just plow hours upon hours into these games in order to pull off a 30-second gag on a 20-minute video. I mean, in all seriousness, this is why I like these days that kind of genre of game, the factory builders, because while you're waiting for stuff to happen effectively, while you're waiting for resources to build up, you can just leave it running and go and do something else. And then come back to it a few hours later. And I tend to veer away these days from games that have stories because I can't play that often. So I'll save it and then might not come back to it for 2 weeks. Yeah. At which point I'm like, what point in the story was I've forgotten what's happening. I've forgotten what I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah. Whereas more casual games like Factorio, you can just pick them up and put them down. Yeah.
Yeah, I always used to like the story games. One of my favourite games on console used to be the Fable series. I used to love playing Fable. Same with like Zelda and stuff like that with the Nintendos. I love them. But again, I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I don't really digital game all that much now anyway. And when I do, it's usually simulation games of some sort or building games I like. Free world building games like Planet Coaster and Planet Zoo and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I just don't really have the time to invest
in the stories, which is a shame because like I said, I used to love story-driven games when I had the time to play them.
Yeah, and it's weird, really, because, again, I think if I had to choose a type of game that I would want to play digitally, it would be a story-driven game, which always confuses me because I'm not the same with board games.
Yeah.
Weirdly. Like, campaign games, I'm just not into them. I've never really figured out why, but there is one that's turned up for me recently, which is a sort of campaign scenario-based one. It's one that I've been waiting for a long time, James, and a part of it is currently sat on our table. Which is, of course, Castle Grayskull, Masters of the Universe, Fields of Eternia is finally in my hands. James, is this one that you've been looking for?
It is. It is. The minute you showed it to me, I was just sort of like, oh.
The real problem here, James, is we are going to fight over Skeletor, aren't we?
Oh, we are.
All of those characters, but we're going to fight over having Skeletor, which I'm actually quite a decent guy. I might let you play as Skeletor, mainly because I've got a mounted Skeletor miniature as well, so I'll have that one instead. Which I think is fair. You get to play as Skeletor and I get to play as a mounted version. So,
yeah.
Again, I haven't actually started reading the rules or anything to that yet, but it looks like it's a scenario-based game.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at the artwork for it. I'm guessing it's based on the classic He-Man.
Yeah.
So, which I like, but it also means that I'm guessing there's no empowered Skeletor from the latest season where he finally gets his hands on the sword of power.
No, but there is obviously different incantations. There is obviously, because there was always an empowered version of Skeletor, but it was never named as such. There's a stupid amount of characters in that game for me to even try and remember.
Yeah, it's just, I just from the latest one that was released not that long ago, I know people have mixed feelings about it, but that scene at the end where he's finally got his hands on the sword of power and he's sort of 600 foot tall, it's like, that's pretty badass.
Yeah. Finally hearing Skeletor saying that, I have the power! It's like, yes! Finally! Just end it here. It's perfect. We don't need any more. I mean, that was what? Episode... I can't even remember.
It was the end. It was the end of the first season.
Yes. See, do you know what? We're going to probably lose listeners here, James, but I liked that. I really liked the redo.
I did.
I'm sorry if you didn't like it and you didn't feel like it was true to what it used to be, but I really liked it. It was a nice continuation of the story. So there you go.
Yep.
I've said it.
Unpopular opinion.
Very unpopular opinion, yes. All what you can expect here at the Meeple Minded. Yeah. But yes, that's a game that's turned up this week, James. We've had a few other games that have turned up in the past couple of weeks, but we had a game night last night and we played some of those games. So
we did.
What games did we play last night, James?
We played Library Labyrinth.
We did. How did you like that? Because that was your first play of it, wasn't it?
It was.
What did you think?
It's difficult.
It's not complicated, though, is it?
It's not complicated, but it's difficult.
To a degree. It's interesting because I've played it at a few different levels, whereas when we played last night, we played 3 games at the advanced level. So it wasn't the hardest level, James.
I know.
How many times did we win out of the 3?
We didn't.
We didn't. Correct. Yeah. We came close.
We did.
On the very last one.
Very, very close.
And it came down to that last turn, didn't it? And you lost it for us. But it's okay. Technically, lost it the last two.
I was going to say, technically, I didn't lose it. We ran out of time.
Yeah, but we ran out of time on your turn.
So that's my fault.
That is your fault, yeah. Whereas the other 2 games, it's okay because we can blame Kiri.
We can blame Kiri.
She just didn't do it properly. So, honestly, Kiri, you call yourself an avid gamer. What can we say? But no, it was good fun. I enjoyed it.
You're going to get so much flack for that.
I am. Let's hope she doesn't listen to the podcast.
I think she does.
She does, yeah. It's annoying. Oh, well, I'll be ready for it. But yeah, Library Labyrinth, James, first impressions?
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, good.
Yep.
That is going to be one that we'll do a game highlight episode properly on in a few weeks, I'd imagine.
Yep.
Because I think we're going to get that to the table a little bit more over the coming weeks and then let people know what we really think.
Yep. But that wasn't the only game that we played.
Yes, we managed to get in some games of Unmatched, when this time we all tried some new characters that we'd not played before.
We did.
And your first one was Medusa.
It was, and she is horrifically overpowered.
So you enjoyed playing with Medusa then?
Well, I won.
You did. Quite good. I mean, you guys took me out really quickly, which...
Well, let's be honest, I did most of the work with that one.
Yeah, one card doing 8 damage or something like that, wasn't it? Oh, no. The card itself only did something like 2, didn't it?
Yep, and then it does 8 as it's after combat.
Yeah. Oh, filth.
It was.
I think Kiri just swooped in and was like, dead.
Yep.
Yeah, that was...
Well, Kiri was playing Dracula, so that was kind of like, I did most of the damage, and Dracula just rocked up and went, oh, a free meal.
Yeah.
Yeah, Medusa... Stupid. You were playing as Robin Hood, weren't you?
I played as Robin Hood in the first game.
Yeah, that whole... Her cards are really powerful. She's a ranged character. She auto deals... What was it? 1 or 2 damage? Is what one damage?
1 if you're in her area.
If you're in her zone, just from looking at her.
Yeah. Filth. Utter filth. I mean, from what I saw of Robin Hood, only had 2 goes.
I'm really sorry.
He looked really pretty. He looked pretty good.
What's Robin Hood's base health? 13?
Something like that.
And I did 10 in one shot.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's knock one down for the English there. Robin Hood, no match for Medusa.
Yeah, definitely. And Dracula seemed to hold up quite nicely. Then we moved on to a second game where we tried some more characters.
We did.
You got to play as Sherlock. Was that your first time as Sherlock?
I believe it was actually my second time as Sherlock. I believe in one of the others I've actually played as Sherlock.
I think you did, but if I remember correctly, we completely obliterated you really quickly.
You did, because you ganged up on me.
Yeah, because we know what Sherlock is like. But Watson was the subject of our ganging up this time.
Yeah, I was going to say, you tried it, but I managed to get out of it.
And then there was an unholy alliance formed between myself, who was playing Sinbad. You were playing Sherlock and Watson, and we were going up against Alice, who we both know is pretty damn filthy.
Yep.
So I was like, let's get this over with pretty quickly.
Yep.
And we did. So sorry, Kiri. Hope you enjoyed the game, by the way. It was Kiri's first introduction into Unmatched, but she seemed to enjoy it. So, yeah. We've been having good fun with Unmatched, James.
We have.
I know before you arrived, myself and Kiri, we managed to get a couple of games of Dice Forge in as well, which was great fun to get that back to the table.
Nice.
But speaking of things getting back to the table, James, do you have an idea about what game we played this time last year?
No.
No? Okay. Well, it's a game that I play quite regularly. Not so much with yourself, though, because we played Cora Quest this time last year. So, a year on, I know you've played it a few times.
I have.
How do you feel about Cora Quest now?
Still the absolutely positive, glowing review I gave it on the actual episode where we covered it.
Oh, well, there you go. That's nice and simple, isn't it? I'm basically the same. Like I said, my son absolutely loves this game. He keeps asking me to buy another copy of it so that I can send it home with him, so that he can get his family to play it with him and stuff like that, which is great. That's a glowing review just from my son. And obviously, since I've had it, he's now nearly 2 years older, and he still loves the game. Really happy with that, knowing obviously I have backed the expansion that is currently going through the process of being produced over in China land. I'm assuming, I think they're making it in China. Pretty sure they are. But obviously, not long after we did our review, game highlight, whatever we were calling it at the time, for Cora Quest, we actually were in contact with Dan Hughes, which was really good. And that sort of led on to Dan coming on the show, which was amazing.
Yeah.
Really was a good chat. But yeah, so James, a year on, Cora Quest, thumbs up?
Absolutely thumbs up.
Excellent. Yep, I'm pretty much slap bang in the middle of the thumbs up category as well. So, James, Topical Tuesday today.
Topical
Tuesday, despite the fact that we're recording this on a Thursday.
Well, way to spoil it, Jason. I mean...
It comes out on a Tuesday. I mean, if the listeners aren't listening to it on a Tuesday, that's not My fault. Why aren't you listening to this on a Tuesday? How dare you? How very, very dare you? It's Topical Tuesday. You should be listening to it on a Tuesday. But yes, it is a Topical Tuesday, James, and we are locked and loaded with tea. We even have a teapot this time, James.
You do. You've put a teapot on the table.
I've actually put a teapot on the table because whenever we have a topical discussion, James, we go on for a fair while talking about things. And every single time we run out of drink. So this time I thought, no, we'll be prepared. We've got a pot of tea on the table.
Excellent.
So we are definitely geared up for this, James. And this time we are going to be talking about playing games with inexperienced gamers or players or potential players. Noobs, if you will, James. Do you remember when you were one of them?
I do.
And how you were the scum of the earth?
I do.
Yeah.
I mean, I would argue that I'm still a noob.
Well, yeah. That's very true, but let's not say that just yet, James. We've got to wait for the really cool music bit, and then we get into the discussion where you then admit that you are still a noob, and we have a discussion as why you're still a noob. Professionalism, James.
See, this. Well, you're right. I'm only highlighting my own point here. See, still learning.
Exactly.
Much to learn. You still have.
So, what do we do at this point, James?
You push the wrong button, and we laugh for 5 minutes.
Yes, let's do it. And it's 5 minutes later. So, yes, playing games with inexperienced players, James. This is a topical that has been brought on by some observations by myself at various game clubs that I have been attending recently, as well as some threads I've seen online in various places. And I must admit, straight off the bat, it's angered me, has this discussion. And the reason it's angered me is because we're always talking about how important it is to bring new blood, new players, all of that into our community to keep our hobby and the business itself thriving. And I'm sticking by that. So, I mean, spoiler, that's my stance on this. But James, what is your stance overall? First off, how important it is to bring new players in, but more importantly, do you have personal opinions when it comes to playing with new and inexperienced players?
I mean, I'd be spoiler alert, as we were talking before we played the cool music, I'd be a huge hypocrite if I had a problem playing with new players, because I still count myself as a fairly new player.
Okay. So, I mean, you count yourself as a new player, but really, James, you're involved in a board game podcast.
Yep.
You're involved in running a tabletop gaming club.
Yep.
You have been you've been helping me run the club now for, 6.5 years?
Yep.
You've been at least attending, and then helping me run it for the past few. You've been in tabletop gaming as a whole on and off for the last 20 years.
Yep.
So why do you deem yourself as a noob?
I deem myself a noob in terms of board gaming, specifically, because my playtime, I would say, is because of work and commitments. The only time I play board games is either on a Wednesday night or at the club on a Monday. The variety of games that I've played, I would say, is still limited, although because of my own personal taste, it's like I didn't go the quote unquote noob route. I went straight at the heaviest, the heavyweight stuff, not the heaviest of weight, but
yeah. I mean, to be fair, you're still not even exposed to the heaviest of the heaviest yet.
Yeah,
and that kind of is on me because obviously I'm not particularly into the heavy stuff.
Yeah,
myself, I'll play them, but I'm not bothered about them being in my collection. And for the most part, we play games from my collection unless we happen to have other people coming in and out wanting to play their games.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of on me. But, I mean, your thoughts about why you're a noob is fair. You are still fairly newish to the board game side of the hobby.
Yeah.
But would you class yourself really as a noob player? Like, you really know how these things work. You're not going to suffer from the stereotype, shall we say, of a air quote,
I'm not
noob.
I still count myself as a fairly new player. I don't count myself as completely being green. I believe is the term, like unexposed. I know most of the terminology. Someone tried to explain something to me about I'm going to get it on the first pass because I speak the lingo, shall we say?
Yeah, you understand the slang, the lingo, the jargon.
The jargon, yeah.
Oh God, I haven't heard that word in a while.
But yeah, to answer your original question, I'm very much in the camp and the same way we run the gaming club, which is 1, we don't like elitism any way, shape, or form.
Yeah,
and 2, it is very important in this to grow the community and introduce new players in. So yes, you should be taking new players on board.
Yeah, this is a bit of I don't want to say a heated topic because I don't want to throw shade on anyone, and I won't be naming anyone by names. I won't even be naming the specific game clubs that I've attended and noticed certain things. But the fact of the matter is I have seen these things. Is it because I look out for these things because of the fact that I run a game club and I'm so heavily invested in the community? I don't know. But my mindset is if I can see it, the potential new player can also see some of these things. And, when, as an example, James, we'll say we've attended a game club. We're trying to arrange some games. There's a few players dotted about. There's a potential of 2 tables that are going to get a game set up, and they're trying to decide which players are doing what. And say, okay, little Jimmy, John and Bob, you go and play on this table, and would you mind playing with Charlie, who is, unfortunately, he's never played, but he's really keen to learn. He likes this, that. And then you've got those sort of sudden little body language bits and bobs, like the sly rolling of the eyes, the under your breath muttering, tutting.
Yeah.
Something like that. It doesn't have to be something big. It doesn't have to be someone going, oh, I'm not playing with an inexperienced player. But even just in body language, that's the kind of thing I've seen. I have actually seen online where people have just outright said, I will never play with an inexperienced player. It makes my game really unenjoyable.
I see. The attitudes like that just make me laugh because it's like at the end of the day, and this goes for any hobby that requires that has a learning curve. Effectively, is like at some point you were in the same position.
Yeah, and I sort of compare it to like driving a car and experienced drivers getting annoyed with learner drivers.
Yeah,
it's like you were a learner at some point, and you would have been doing exactly the same as these people.
Yeah,
and I feel that it's exactly the same with playing a board game.
Yeah,
but what some of the things I want to talk about today, James, is what are the pros and cons, if you like, of playing games with experienced gamers over inexperienced gamers, and what are the pros and cons of playing with an inexperienced gamer over an experienced gamer, because I do believe there are pros to playing with inexperienced players over an experienced player, and I've written a few of my personal ones down, but I want to have a little discussion about that, James.
Yeah.
But off the bat, is there anything in particular you would say is a bad thing to playing with an inexperienced gamer?
I wouldn't say bad. It's like I can see the advantages of a table that's experienced, where there's all players are experienced, and I think this is where most of the attitude comes from, is you don't have to teach the game effectively.
Yeah. No, I would understand that as well. But even if you're all playing a brand new game, so everyone there, to me, is a level of inexperience. You've not played this game before, so you've got to learn this game. And this is actually one of my first, I'm going to call it a con, of playing with an experienced player over an inexperienced player. And this comes from someone who has to teach games all the time. I find teaching a game to an inexperienced player is far, far easier and more streamlined than trying to teach it to an experienced player. And the reason is, well, no, I know it all. You don't know this. You've not played it. All right, you might know what a worker placement game is, but you don't know the ins and outs of what this worker placement game is.
I see. I've immediately thought of another con that's on the same line, and that is observations of watching you teach new games to experienced players, but they've not played that particular game, is how to phrase this. There's more likely to be interruptions and the questions usually revolve around how do I metagame the hell out of this?
Yes. Yeah.
Rather than actually just letting you say, right, this is the game, these are the rules, let's play.
Yeah. And the irony is that this leads on to something else. Like, I find the majority of the time, if a rule is being played wrong within a game that I have taught, it's usually from a, air quotes, experienced gamer who just hasn't been listening to what I've said. And they've done what they thought was right, and it's wrong. And it actually, all right, it may not break the entire game, but by the time it's been seen, because, these experienced gamers are also those, going back to one of our other episodes, who don't actually announce what they're doing on their turn. It's taken a few turns for me to click what's gone on. Is like, well, now it's irreversible. And now, the game is not, it's gone wrong. We either have to completely finish this game wrong, or we have to reset, which is going to really annoy me. Whereas when you are playing with an inexperienced gamer, one, they will have actually paid attention to what you're saying when you're doing the rules teach. But more importantly, rather than make a mistake, they will double check what they're doing.
Yeah, or most of the time they'll tell, all right, for at least the first couple would be, guys, can you watch me do my turn so that a second set of eyes is watching for me making a mistake.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the funny part for me, because one of the key things I see all the time is, playing with inexperienced gamers, it takes too long. They take forever to take their turns, and the game lasts so much longer with inexperienced players. I semi-agree with that.
I don't
get me wrong. I don't. I semi-agree with it, and I'll go into it in a bit more as to why in a minute, but only semi-agree with it because it takes just as long to try and fix the issues of someone who hasn't listened to the rules in the first place.
Yeah, for different reasons, I don't actually know. I think experienced gamers take just as long as inexperienced gamers for different reasons. The inexperienced players can take time to take their turn because they're still learning the game. Again, a lot of experienced players will take their sweet time because they're working out how to absolutely cheese their turn.
Well, there is that. There is indeed that. But, this is where I would say it differs slightly, because you will find an experienced gamer, for example, will spend their downtime planning their next turn. So it does cut down on the downtime just a little bit, whereas an inexperienced player will be watching what other people are doing to try and learn a bit more about the game, which then adds to the downtime of everyone else because it gets to their turn, and that's when they get the cogs whirring as to what they need to do. So their turn does take a bit longer. Fully understand that. There's no way of really avoiding that. But that's just part and parcel of learning a game.
Yeah.
I'd say everyone does it when they're learning a game for the first time.
Like I said, you're going to get a mixture. That's long turn times. I believe we've done an episode on this. Is not unique to NEWBS.
No, it's not.
I have played with just as many experienced gamers who take a while to take their turns.
Yeah. Yep. So I don't. I think that's tick box number one as far as I'm concerned. Right, we've dispelled that because that is garbage. The time taken to play a game, it might be a tiny bit longer, but not a drastic amount.
No.
All right. If you've got a whole table full of inexperienced gamers who have never played these games before, never played a modern board game before, and you're trying to teach them something of substance, it's gonna take a while.
Yep.
But if you really don't want to be sat down teaching a whole table of new experienced players, don't ask them to play. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like, what are the odds that you're going to get an entire table of complete new guys if you're not running effectively a tutorial?
Yeah, exactly.
For beginners,
we do it all the time.
Yeah.
This is the kind of thing that we will get by being organised of a game club. And yeah, you ignore this whole thing of not wanting to play with inexperienced gamers because it's part and parcel of what you do.
Yeah.
You run a games club, it's what you're going to have to do.
This discussion is talking about regular sort of people who turn up to us, and it's like occasionally you might get one or two new players. A whole table with just you as the only experienced one, very rare.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you've specifically set up that event, in which case, why are you complaining that you're playing with new guys?
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's a lot of that downtime and slowness can be mitigated by the table supporting the new player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What I mean by that, and we covered it in our verbal, non-verbal thing, is if you've got a new person at the table, vocalize your turn. They'll learn a lot quicker because I know you do it. It's sort of, there aren't many games that will detriment you from going last. So it's sort of like everyone who's experienced will go first. So you get to see a whole round.
Yeah.
Effectively before it gets to you and watch the turns, and we'll all vocalize our turns so you can see the actions that they're taking.
Yep.
and how they work. It's just support the new player.
Yeah, exactly. It's not difficult, is it? It's not difficult. Right, James, here's one. I laughed at this. I must be honest. I outwardly laughed at this. Experienced players make better decisions. Yeah.
What I don't even understand what they mean by that. What do you mean experienced players make better decisions?
I mean, like, say you're playing a co-op game and they, Mr. Non-Experience has made a decision to do something and it isn't the most optimum thing that they could have done, or they've gone against what the group has said. It's like, that's not the most optimum thing. Yeah, but I'm going to do this anyway. Well, first off, if it's a co-op game, it's their turn. They can do what they like.
Yep.
But more importantly, this goes back to exactly what you were just saying. It all comes down to coaching them properly, talking them.
I'm going to say,
without talking down to someone.
I am going to say something that is going to be very, we joked earlier about our opinions on the He-Man series losing as this might actually do it.
Yeah.
If you can only play a game for the most optimum route and you can't handle somebody throwing a curveball, you are a poor gamer because you can't adapt.
Yeah.
You know one strategy and you throw your toys out the pram if someone does something to upset it.
It's not just that. It's like, for me, it's not a game at that point.
No.
It's not fun.
It's 10 steps to a victory and you're just going through the motions. It's like, what makes gaming fun is the unpredictability. It's like, I love... It doesn't have to be a newbie doing that. When a game takes a sharp right in a direction that I wasn't anticipating, how am I going to deal with that?
Yeah. What do you do when the curveball is thrown? Yeah. You adapt or you lose. That's the fun. The whole thing about board games, tabletop gaming in general, it's a puzzle. The whole thing is a puzzle. If you know the equation...
Yeah.
To win, to solve the puzzle is no longer a puzzle.
Yep.
It's a maths equation. It's a calculation on a calculator. You already know what the answer is.
Yeah.
You're working with backwards maths. It's like, you know what the answer is, you just need to figure out what that mathematical equation is. And once you know it, it's not fun anymore. It's copy and paste. So that's all you're going to do every time you play the game is just copy and paste. So it's not... if you're doing something in a tournament, that's kind of what you want from if you're playing a TCG tournament, you want a copy and paste thing. Every game you play, you want to be exactly the same because you know you've optimized how that deck works. In a board game, you should not be doing that. It is there for fun. That is what you are there for. There's multiple levels to this. First off, to me, that experienced players make better decisions. First off, irrelevant. Shouldn't be that way. It may well be true, but do you know what? So what? But most importantly with this one, James, I feel that particular statement is so insulting. It's really insulting to the inexperienced players.
Yep.
Because you are essentially saying that they are not as clever as someone else. Is that?
Yeah, and you don't know. I mean, we are talking about from things that come from experience. Yes, all right. If you've played the game, you know the game. You know how mechanics work. Yes, you have a general idea of what you can do. But there's nothing more entertaining than watching an absolutely new player accidentally stumble onto the
winning formula.
The optimum path without realizing it, and watching the experienced players who have been mathing it out just go, oh.
How did you do that?
I don't know. I just did it.
It's funny when that happens.
It is.
It's hilarious.
It is funny when that happens. But it's like when you boil a game down to what is essentially, like you said, a maths equation. We've said it. You just sucks the fun out of it. I am instantly reminded of the Star Wars campaign we did that Scott ran, and how many D&D players are quite like that, min-maxing their characters, and that's not fun to me. Whereas I know we made Scott's life slightly hellish when we decided to play our characters as if it was just us in miniature form.
Yeah.
So it's like, I know exactly what the optimum thing to do here is, but that's not what I do.
I'm going to do the polar opposite.
It's not even the polar opposite. I'd do what I would do, which is, instead of going the way that he's shepherding to me, I'm going to swerve hard left into this bar.
And throw a punch.
Yeah, because...
Because why not?
Because why not?
Yeah, exactly. And
exactly.
It just adds to that fun,
made
doesn't
it
it?
fun. And it was also quite entertaining watching Scott, as the DM, try and instantly come up with something new because we were doing stuff that he hadn't planned for, like spending 20 minutes trying to open a locked door that had absolutely nothing to do with what he had planned and led to space.
Yeah.
It was an airlock.
Yeah, exactly. Great fun.
Yep.
That's where the best stories come from. But that leads quite nicely on, James, because obviously talking about D&D and roleplay and doing stuff like that, that doesn't really involve all that much competition because it's usually a co-op type thing. But this is the next one was essentially competition is key. Experienced players are far more, they're far more competitive. They're better at competition. It makes for a better challenge, so we say. So at this point, we're obviously talking about 1v1, 1v all that kind of stuff. Anything that isn't cooperative. Do you think experienced players are more competitive?
I don't know if I'd phrase it that way, but the gist of what they're getting at, I would actually almost maybe not the competitiveness, but what goes hand in hand with that is the challenge. Yeah, all right, an experienced player who knows what they're doing is obviously going to be more of a challenging player than someone who is learning the game or new to board gaming.
Yeah.
Simply by dint of they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest, both of us have done this when playing with an absolute newbie and we're playing a game that we know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's simply a case of I've played this game enough times to know how to win it.
Yep.
I can see my path to victory, but I don't want to absolutely stomp on the new person.
Yeah, exactly.
And that can be quite difficult. In some games, it almost forces you to do that, which it can be quite awkward. So on that one, I would agree, but I don't think that's an excuse as to not play with a newbie. And again, I think if you're playing with a newbie and that situation arrives, it's a teachable moment. It is, okay, the game has funneled me into this choice. This is what's going to happen, and this is why it's going to happen.
I mean, the real question here when it comes to competition is there are countless games that have world championships around, ironically, around the world. But we'll take the Pokemon TCG was recently held in London. Let's say the winners of that particular tournament, the top 5 players, they are arguably the top 5 competitive players of that game system in the world. Do you think that they will only ever play against other tournament players, or do you think that maybe in their local town that they might attend a normal Pokemon TCG league night and maybe play against all levels of players, including newbies?
I mean, the honest answer to that is I don't know.
I would argue that they probably do.
They might do. I mean,
you'll get some that are, I will only ever play against tournament players, but I would say the vast majority, a high percentage of tournament level players will play against a wide range of different players, whether it be newbies, 1 step up, 2 steps up, 3 steps up, whatever it be. They're not only ever going to play against the best in the world.
Yeah.
So is competition really key? Because clearly, if you will only ever play with someone who's of competition to your level, you're really limiting on who you can play against.
Yeah.
I don't think competition is key. I'm sorry, competition's fun, and I do enjoy a competitive game, but sometimes, do I need that in every game? No, I don't.
Yeah. Well, I have a thing against TCGs in the first place, so...
Well, yeah, I mean, I do as well, but...
Well, it's a TCG... The reason I have a thing against TCGs is the same argument I use against things like mobile games, and that is it's pay to win.
Yeah, a lot of these games are. Yeah, that's a discussion for another day, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay, so I've got a few things I want to talk about that I do personally think are better with people that are not experienced in games. And I've semi-touched on it already, James, but I want to know your input on this, and that is that I personally find games with inexperienced players more fun, which is what I like in my games. I like them to be fun. What do you think, James? Are they more fun with inexperienced players?
I would say that depends, because the type of experience, because there are shades of experienced players, as we have,
of course,
been talking about here, and as much as we're having a pop at people for saying, oh, they won't play with experienced players. Personally, I go out of my way to avoid playing with the quote-unquote experienced players that we're talking about here because I find them quite elitist.
Yeah.
And I have a problem with elitism, so I try not to play games with these people. Because like you said, I don't find their uber competitiveness fun.
Yeah. We've talked about it a fair bit in the past, James. Like, we like to not cock about, when we're playing games, but we like to have fun. We like to do silly things sometimes.
Yes.
In the games. Like, if we're doing all right in a game, we might deliberately make a silly choice or deliberately block someone else just to be funny.
Yeah. I mean, you say it's a silly choice. 9 times out of 10, it's not a silly choice for the purposes of being silly. It's, I've not tried doing it this way before.
I just think overall, I find them more fun because I find inexperienced players tend to immerse themselves more into the theme of the game rather than the mathematical equation. They tend to have a bit more fun. There's a bit more banter that will go on with an inexperienced gamer. They're just more friendly all round.
Yeah.
Because they're not so heavily into the game that everything is about the game and only the game and the math and the puzzle, and they're not all about winning. It just makes it more fun. Just makes it far more fun. So, yeah, I would say, again, there are levels to it. The group that we play with, they're all experienced gamers, but they're a great bunch to play games with because we can have that level of fun.
Yeah.
But I would argue that that's because we don't play the same game over and over and over again. So every time we play a new game, technically, most people around that table are inexperienced players because they've not played that game before.
Yep.
Whereas when you play a game that we've all played before, dozens of times, we'll take Scythe as an example, there's a lot less cocking about, and it's not quite as fun.
Yeah.
It's just, what I'm saying is it's not quite as fun as it maybe once was.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest, we still take the silliest option on the encounter cards.
Well, yeah, obviously. Be rude not to.
Help the peasant, rob the peasant. Well, I'm going to rob the peasant. I mean, why would I not?
Exactly. That gives me 1 more gold. Sod the peasant.
Oh, but my popularity has gone down. I wonder why.
Well, who doesn't like me anymore? I'll go and beat them up and nick their money too. But yes, my second point here, James, I have definitely already touched on this one, and that is in the teaching of the games. Yeah, it bugs me that inexperienced players actually pay more attention to learning a new game than an experienced player. You also touched on it a little bit. If you have got an experienced player who has indeed played that game before, it bugs me to no end that they butt in when you are trying to do a teach, because they're just confusing the issue by presenting information that doesn't need to be presented.
Mm-hmm.
Or if it does need to be presented, it doesn't need to be presented at that point, because if it needed to be presented at that point, I would have presented it at that point. Don't confuse the issue. Yeah, I'm going to leave it there.
He's on his hobby horse.
He's on the hobby horse. The hobby horse. The high rocking hobby horse. I said it earlier. Experienced players are nearly always the first ones to make mistakes after a rules teach of a game that they've just tried to learn because they haven't listened properly. That's my third point. And I would definitely say this is a positive for me because I don't like hyper-competitive games. But again, we've touched on it. Games with non-experienced gamers tend to be a little less competitive.
Yeah.
And I prefer that, personally. I can understand if you are a hyper-competitive person, maybe that's just not your thing. You just get off on, being in a competitive environment. Fair enough. That I can't argue, but I would argue that has nothing to do with the fact of whether you should or shouldn't play with an inexperienced gamer.
Yeah. I think with that, it's like there's also time and a place for that kind of gaming.
Yeah. And
9 times out of 10, your local gaming scene, unless it's a tournament, is not the place for that, is it? I used to say this when it came to tabletop gaming, was nobody enjoys being curb stomped. Yep. Sometimes it happens.
Yep.
But when you're doing it on purpose over and over and over and over again, it's not fun anymore.
No.
I much prefer games that come down to the wire.
Yeah, 100%.
It comes to the last turn and it could go either way. That's fun to me.
Yeah.
All games, sometimes you just get lucky and you run away with it and you're just a bit like, oh.
Yeah.
You know, the dice go your way. But like I said, min-maxing everything so it just steamrolls everything that comes across it. Unless you're playing in a competitive tournament.
Why?
It's not fun.
It can't be fun for you, and it definitely isn't fun for the person
Yeah,
who just
it's
curb
like,
stomped.
again, I'm going to use TCGs again. It's like turning up to your local gaming club with a clone of the winning deck at Worlds and taking it up against a 7-year-old who's just getting into it.
Yeah.
With their, starter box.
Yeah.
Of course you're going to steamroll them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I also find the kind of people who do that will sit there with a smug look on their face while they're doing it, and it's hardly a challenge, is it?
Yeah. You might as well be playing a wall.
Yeah.
At that point. Yeah, no, I completely agree. But I think no matter which way you really look at it, James, there's kind of no right or wrong answer to all of this. I think we are right in exactly what we say, that it is vital 100% that you should be playing and encouraging new blood into the hobby. Because even if you just think of it this way, if you're not playing with a new player, then there's less new players into the hobby. Less new players into the hobby means less money being spent in the business that comes along with our hobby. If there's no money in the business doesn't exist. That means no new games. How would you feel having no new games, James?
Yeah, disappointed.
We'd eventually run out of games. We've played all the games. What do we talk about? What games do we play? We play the same games over and over again. I'm pretty lucky. I've got a decent sized collection, but I always want more. I always want to play something new. How would I feel if literally the gaming let's be honest, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But hypothetically, if it did get to the point where this business side of the hobby was not sustainable anymore, it's not there. It won't come again. Think back to the golden era of board games. There was one long, long ago when we were kids, and it died. And it died for a very, very, very long time. We're lucky enough now, James, that we are currently living in what I deem as the second golden age of board gaming, arguably much better than that first one. So that makes the first one a silver. But we always talk about this hypothetical bubble.
Yeah.
When will the bubble burst? What will be the catalyst to that bubble bursting? One of the small little things that will help push that needle through is going to be elitism within gaming. And when we're talking about elitism, we're talking about players that won't play with certain people. And we've only covered one type of person that people won't play with today: newbies. They are a part of the hobby as much as all of us, which is why they're just as vital to it. Do I agree with my personal thing? And I know you're the same. I'm the same as you. I try not to play with people that are super competitive, but I won't not play with them.
I was going to say, there's an important distinction there. It's like, I try not to play with it. If there is a space on any other table, I'll take it. I won't absolutely refuse to play with those people.
It also depends on the game. If I really want to play that game and that player is playing that game, that's the game I'm going to play. The players will not stop me.
Yep. And if you like competitive so much, guess who I'm gunning for?
Yeah. Exactly. I'm a vengeful person, James, as the second game of Unmatched last night proved. Soon as we started that one, I was gunning straight for you.
I mean, did you like that move, though? Because, Kiri boxed me in the corner quite early. I kind of threw you into that fight. I just went, oh, you're over there. Yeah, you're over here now.
Yeah. Sodding Sherlock. But yes, James, final thoughts on this topic. Like, where do you really stand? Would you ever turn around and say, I will never play with an inexperienced? That's a silly question, but
no,
do you understand people that actually say they wouldn't do it?
Not permanently. We were having a discussion about this. It's like, I do understand sometimes you are just not in the mood to teach a game. You just want to play it.
Yeah,
I have seen this. Like, I know there's a regular group at our board gaming group at our gaming club.
Yep,
and they are very welcoming.
Yep,
they do everything the right way, as far as I'm concerned. Sometimes we'll get a newbie and the table's already full.
Yes,
at which point the guy who looks after those tables will immediately add them to the WhatsApp group that they all have. So it's like, unfortunately the game's full this time, but I can add you straight into the group. You let us know when you're coming down and we'll keep a space open for you. Or we'll make sure we bring games that have higher player counts. That is the correct way to handle that.
Yeah.
Sometimes they might say to us on the odd week, I'm not in the mood to teach.
Yep.
Which is, that is fair enough. It's like, I'm just not feeling it this week.
I've had a bad day at work. And now I just want to
relax and play a game.
Yeah.
I understand that because every other week, they're more than happy to take it on. It's I'm not feeling it tonight.
Yeah.
That is different to, I will not play with newbies.
Yeah, 100%.
I see that as a service to both because it's like, he lets us know that he's not in the mood for it. It also means that newbie isn't going to get what is effectively, without being funny about it, a half-baked teach.
Yeah.
Because the person who's running the game is just not feeling it.
Yeah. Exactly. And do you know what? I hold my hands up and go, it's happened to me in the past, quite a few times, in fact. It might be I've had a bad day at work. Might be I haven't slept properly the night before. It's, a well-known fact amongst a lot of our friends. I'm basically an insomniac. I barely sleep. It might be that I'm currently in the middle of a hobby burnout, which I've lost track of how many times that's happened to me, and, touch wood, that hasn't happened for quite some time. But there are a lot of factors that could play into it.
Yeah.
But I think as long as you are of a higher percentage an accepting, welcoming player than you are a non-accepting player, then it's fine.
Using the example, it's like there are ways to handle when you're like that.
Yeah.
I've seen you in your hobby burnout phases, and it is, again, if someone has come up to you and said, oh, we're new, would you mind teaching us this game? It's like, I'm really sorry, guys. I'm just not feeling it this evening. But if you're about next week, more than happy to do it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as someone who runs a club, I would point out that even in my worst ways, like, if there's no one else to run a game for someone new, I do. But I try my best to not give it that whole half-baked teach or whatever.
I used to see that.
Turn on the customer service, basically.
Yeah, I used to see that more from you on when the Wednesday nights were running.
Yes.
And that was because you took too much on.
I did.
I'm going to say that now. You took too much on, and everything suffered as a detriment to that.
Yeah. But, scale it back, which is what I've done. I'm now in a much better place than I was.
Yeah. But the point I'm making is there are ways to handle that when it does pop up, but they're rare and they're one-offs. Rather than just sitting there going, nah, not interested in playing with new people.
Yeah. We don't hide the fact, James. We've said it quite a few times in this. Neither of us are fans of elitism.
No.
Elitism is the biggest poison, as far as I'm concerned, as part of any community. It's not just this one.
No.
I've been part of many, many hobby communities.
They all have.
In fact, all sorts of different communities. They've all got them.
Yeah, they've all got elitists, and they are the bane of every single one of those communities.
Yes. It's another topic that's revolved around, that sort of elitism and toxicity within the community. And I stand by what I say. This is still one of the most welcoming communities I've ever been part of. I want it to stay that way, which is why I wanted to talk about this today, James, because as I said, I have noticed an increasing amount of these issues that we've talked about today. I think really that needs to be crushed as quickly as possible. I've actually been in contact with various game club organisers at the affected clubs that I have attended, and I'm sort of working with them with my suggestions, what I would do in certain situations, because a lot of them, as it turns out, are just very inexperienced. They were brand new club organisers. They weren't sure the best way to deal with the issues. So the best thing I can do is provide what I believe is the best course of action and what I would personally do. And seemingly they seem to have taken the ideas on board and hopefully progressing with it in the future. So there you go. James, another serious conversation down.
Indeed.
Was that fun? I mean, we've been talking an hour and 5 minutes.
We have.
And I haven't quite run out of tea. I think the pot of tea was a really good idea. It was definitely a good idea. I think we might have to make a particular thing. And maybe a plate of biscuits as well. We really need to go British on this. A little plate of biscuits.
Little plate. We're just getting old.
Yeah, we're getting old. We're old and British, James. But the real question is, though, if you're going to have biscuits, what biscuits do you want? Do we go for the chocolate bourbons? Do we go for the custard creams? Do we go for a proper hobnob?
Bourbons.
Is it bourbons all the way?
Bourbons.
Oh, see, I'm one of those. I'm a real weird one. I like fig biscuits as well. There you go.
I haven't had fig biscuits since I was about 3.
I can't tell you how often I eat fig biscuits.
They used to be my favourite snack as as a small child.
Oh, yeah, I used to love Fig Biscuits, but also the husks. Do you remember the husks that you used to get? It's basically like a plain biscuit with a metric ton of sugar just on the top. Brilliant thing to give kids. They should. Why don't we see these kind of things nowadays? Our youth, James, our youth. We're not even that old. Well, we are. James, we're nearly middle-aged. I mean, are we technically middle-aged now? I'm 30. No. I'm 36 this year. I've got a few more years before I officially join the middle-age club. Well, is that right?
I mean, effectively, to math it out, you'd actually have to look at what the average lifespan. Middle age is about 45.
Yeah, I've got a little while yet. Then I'm still a young'un. I mean, maybe not that far. We're down with the kids, James. We do a podcast.
We do.
It might be about board games, but still, we're down with the kids, damn it.
Yeah.
The problem is all those kids probably tuned out about, I don't know, we're an hour and 7 minutes now. They probably tuned out about an hour and 5 minutes ago, maybe, something like that, because it's not 30 seconds of content on TikTok. So, yeah, see, I know what TikTok is too. That's why I don't use it.
I've known what TikTok is for ages. It's the sound that my clock makes.
Yeah. But anyway, it's time for us to go, James, because I am getting tired and I've got work early in the morning. So we're not playing games tonight, but we are going to be playing games very soon. And we're going to be back here talking about games again next week. But until then, I have been Jason.
And I've been James.
And you've been listening to the Meeple Minded podcast. Join us next week for more tabletop gaming goodness. Ta-ta, goodbye.